Welcome to the Next Gen podcast, the second edition where we sit down with leaders, innovators and change makers shaping the future of work, life and opportunity. I'm your host, Sam Moncrief from Proactive Financial Planning, and today we're diving into one of the biggest topics for young professionals right now, property investment. Whether you're saving for your first home, looking to start investing or thinking about how to make a property portfolio, it's a topic that comes up with my clients and a lot of young professionals that I speak to as well. So people want to know, where do I start, what's realistic, and is now a good time? Joining me today to unpack it all is someone who knows the market inside and out, Adam Price, CEO of Select Property and one of Manchester's leading developers, investors, helping people navigate property the smart way. Adam, it's great to have you on Next Gen.
Thank you, Samantha. Great to be here.
So, to get us started, we're going to do some quick fire questions for you.
Excellent.
So you've got to answer with the first response that comes to mind. So, we've got 10.
Okay.
Number 1, Manchester or Dubai?
Both. Manchester.
First property you ever bought, dream or disaster?
Dream.
Ah, okay. What's one thing you wish you knew before starting in property?
Do your research, your due diligence. Okay. Due diligence is key.
If you weren't in property, what would you be doing?
Professional footballer.
Oh, everyone's dream. Best advice you've ever received about business or investing?
Failing to plan is planning to fail.
Good advice. Biggest myth about property investing you'd love to bust?
It's certainly not as complicated as people make out. Again, do your research, look at the track record, credibility of the developer, and that goes a long way.
Okay. Coffee ordered before a big meeting. What's in that?
Well, that was an oat milk latte because I'm trying to be healthy, but I would usually have a skinny vanilla latte.
3 words colleagues would use to describe you as?
I'd say pragmatic, getting the job done, urgent. Urgency is key in our business, and professional, I would hope. Acting with integrity.
Here's hoping. Your go-to podcast, book or person that inspires your thinking right now?
Wow. So book, Good to Great, Jim Collins.
I've not heard of that one.
Really interesting. Simplifying business, all about the culture, core competency. Podcast, The Diary of a CEO, probably quite mainstream. Inspirations, Roy Keane, very, very pragmatic.
Urgent.
And I think just on a fun note, Luke Littler, the darts player, at such a young age, what that guy achieves is accuracy and under pressure. So, yeah, nice blend.
Oh, very good. And lastly, if someone gave you 100,000 to invest today, where's it going? And the answer is Proactive Financial Planning. No.
Manchester, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So, outside of your quick fire questions, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you came to be where you are?
Sure. So I'm Adam Price, CEO of Select Property, recently celebrated 20 years in the business. So I joined straight after university. I was playing football on a Sunday morning. The marketing director at the time said, why don't you come for an interview with Mark Stott, the entrepreneurial owner of Dubai Select at the time. So we were selling off-plan property in Dubai. I joined, quickly kind of achieved my sales targets. And after 3 months, Mark said, do you fancy moving to Dubai? We need to meet customers at the airport, hotel, show them round, and we need to set an office up, a sales and marketing office. So at 22 years old, went for it, moved over. I lived there for 15 years.
Wow.
Always came from a sales background, so grew through the business as a property consultant, a sales manager, sales director. 2012 became the managing director of the Middle East. So, demonstrated that we could grow a business around the GCC, places like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. As we became more of a UK developer, the opportunities then became more kind of Manchester-based, which is our core area of business.
That's what we like to hear.
I moved back in 2020 during the middle of the pandemic, and just really proud to have done 20 years. We've got a great portfolio now in Manchester, which includes Affinity Living, Riverview, Riverside, Lawrence Place, Exchange Point, One Port Street in the Northern Quarter, which is set for completion on January the 20th. So we're really capitalising on a strong market here, a significant undersupply of premium rental property. And then you've got all the universities, the education, 100,000 students, 50% graduate retention rate, and that's driving the economy. So
yeah, definitely. Well, obviously, as you say, Select's become a real name in Manchester, obviously with all the properties that you've just reeled off there by name. So what's the vision behind Select Property and what makes your approach different to others?
I think it's all about people. So when I first joined, Mark's philosophy was all about empowering people. And that's certainly evident in our culture at the business. People have joined at a young age, gone on a journey. We've got, lots of people who have now celebrated 15 years, 20 years. So it's a people-centric business, and that kind of works its way into the property offering as well. So what makes us different is whatever sector of the property market, we look at the experience of the resident who lives with us.
Right.
So for example, Vita Student, that's all about the student. So we reverse engineered the proposition around them. So tier one location, the highest quality, amenities and facilities that are actually used, kind of live work lounges, study areas, security. Each of the residence managers was KPI'd to know the name of every student in the building.
Wow, okay.
By doing that, we offer a great experience for students. In turn, we could then sell those properties as investments to our customers, and we could drive the rental yield. So I think if you put the person, the people, the resident at the centre of the proposition, I really think it's a win-win for all.
I think that's really interesting. And in a similar vein, it's that balance between lifestyle and investment. Something that I speak with, again, young professionals, a lot of my clients, they want the first home to fit their life as well as be a good investment if that's what they're buying it for. So like you say, it's about finding the right mix of practical and aspirational.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Okay, so let's start broad. The property market has been through a lot of change, rising interest rates, affordability challenges, and a lot of uncertainty, especially in the last 5 years. From your perspective, what is the current landscape like, and how should young professionals be thinking about property in 2025?
I'd agree. The property market, there's always challenges. Government legislation changes. As you mentioned there, the interest rates have been higher, which makes the mortgage market more difficult. But I'm very optimistic about the UK property market. If you look back over a prolonged period of time, apart from a few hiccups along the way, the global financial crisis of 2008, Brexit, the pandemic, property prices generally go in one direction, which is, steady, consistent growth. So I think, we're confident there still remains a significant undersupply of homes in the UK. Various different reports suggest there's 4.3 million homes needed at the moment across the UK. And in places like Birmingham, I think they're only delivering 5,000 homes a year. In Manchester, the supply is a little bit higher, but still there is a significant undersupply of your premium rental property. And I think if we use Manchester as a case study, as we've talked about, the universities, there's a large talent pool of skilled workers, highly educated. So there's lots of blue chip companies now opening in Manchester. Puma, for example, have opened at Circle Square, Booking.com, Google, Apple, Kellogg's, Adidas, Nike, and they're all looking for these young, hungry business professionals. So Manchester's becoming more and more desirable now. It really is a global brand. From a culture perspective, you've got the football clubs, Manchester United being the best in the world. Got things like the Brit Awards, which are going to be held in Manchester in 2026, 2027. Recently, we had the Chanel fashion show in the Northern Quarter, which was absolutely fantastic. So I think Manchester as a global brand, with the education, the commercial activity, and the culture, it's becoming even more popular. You've got more and more students domestically and internationally moving in, and I think this is very, very promising for the property market.
Yeah, definitely. And I always remember, and we're talking many, many years ago, someone was saying to me, I think it might have been my dad, you can always tell how well a city's doing by how many cranes are in the sky. And and it's so true. And, it's quite shocking to hear, in a sense, that properties aren't being built as quickly as they're needed, because all you see when you look around is building.
Incredible, and it shows you the scale of the opportunity. I think Manchester now, the property market's been on a journey for really the past 10 years, and still now you'll see more and more cranes, which shows you there's still a supply issue. We continue to monitor that. We're still really confident that more supply is needed, especially of the experience-led developments, which really appeal to the younger business professionals, where we try to create communities within our residences. We try to bring the developments to life through the live work lounge areas, the library areas, the gymnasiums. Events are very important to us. So, I think it's good news for Manchester, and I think it's good news for the people who live here.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think as well on that point, a lot of people try and time when it's a good opportunity to buy, even from a personal perspective. They're buying the first home, they're like, oh, but if I buy here and then, and I always tell my clients, if it's about property or investment, it's pointless trying to time a market. Just it's got to be the right time for you and your finances, and you've just got to go for it. And like you say, with the outlook of the property market being so positive.
Of course, I totally agree. And if you look again, let's look at London as a case study. People who bought in London 30, 40 years ago, you look at what their property price is worth now. It's 10 to 20 times more. And I'm not saying that's going to happen in Manchester, but if you look back at what people paid in 2015, 2016 as a price per square foot, of course it's lower. Well, that doesn't mean you've missed the boat. As you say, you get involved now, you secure a price. We look at new developments all the time. And when you do an appraisal to look at the viability, we're seeing that, land prices, construction costs, they're all going up. So the price per square foot will naturally increase over time. So my advice would be to young people, look to secure a property now, do your due diligence, never overexpose yourself, so you've got to be in the right position financially to do that. I think the mortgage market will open up again with interest rates dropping. But, I don't think there's ever a perfect time.
No,
and the rental market's so strong, as the young people will know, they're paying the rents. So if you can, get the deposit, secure a mortgage, your effectively rental payment can then go to service the mortgage.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant. So for those thinking about buying the first home or first investment property, it can feel pretty intimidating. There's a lot to consider. You've never had any experience in it before. What practical advice would you give someone looking to take that first step?
So don't rush. Research is key. It's critical. I keep saying due diligence, but there's lots of clever marketing campaigns out there, and there's lots of businesses that present themselves, as the right person to purchase a property with or invest with. But look at their track record. Look at how long the business has been operating. What is their business model? With Select Property, we develop, we sell, and manage. So it's essentially a one-stop shop for an investor or for an end-user occupier. So, look at what they've delivered, look at the management within the building.
Definitely a key thing.
That's so important. Lots of things can be promised, but you want to make sure that the building is run properly, efficiently, and depending on your own personal, requirements, what does that look like from a community perspective? How do they bring the building to life? So I think that's really, really important. Research, look at the mortgage market as well. Look at the interest rates. Try and fix your mortgage on a basis that's right for you, so you avoid any unpleasant surprises.
Yep. I know a few people who've experienced them, myself being one of them. But no, I kind of love those points there. From my side, I always think it's about clarity, and that's what I kind of, when I'm speaking with mortgage clients, that's the kind of thing that I say. It's about know your numbers. What have you got for your deposit? What can you afford? And actually, not just maxing out what you can afford, but what can you afford if you get caught out by an interest rate. What is that worst case scenario, and are you protected and secure enough to move forward in that position still? It's just getting your financial plan in order, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. Always think of the rainy day ahead.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've got your first property. What are the key things to consider if you want to grow from there? So how do you go from owning one property to building a small, balanced portfolio?
Timing, I would say. There's no rush. You could get addicted. You've got your first property, you want your second.
I've got a couple of
third.
clients like that.
It's not like buying a watch.
Yeah.
This is something that it's a life-changing amount of money. Regardless of whether you go for a studio, 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bed. So again, make sure it's the right time for you. Don't overexpose yourself. Don't push yourself too much. Don't get caught up in that kind of enthusiasm really to do too much too quickly.
Yeah.
And just review every opportunity on its own individual merits.
Yeah.
And if something doesn't feel right, gut feeling, you feel like you might be pushing yourself a bit too much, keep the money safe, invested. There'll always be more opportunities out there. So there's no rush.
No. And I think that's it. It links with strategy, doesn't it?
It does.
My job is talking with clients about sort of what their long-term goals are and can their money support that. And obviously, if you're utilising that money to buy a property or property portfolio, it's making sure that aligns with what you need. Like, is it going to give you the access to income that you need? You're not tying up too much capital in things that you might need for other things.
And I think the great thing with bricks and mortar is what you're getting.
Yeah.
There'll be steady capital growth. I think at the moment Savills are predicting a further increase in house prices in Manchester in the region of 25% to 30% over the next 5 years. In turn, rental prices are looking to go up by 18.8%. So these are all the things that you need to factor in when you're making that decision.
I suppose it's you want the right property, not just the next property.
You do, and I would say diversification is key as well. My advice would be whether you're looking at Manchester or another option or developments within Manchester, always look to kind of spread your risk.
Yeah.
There's a temptation maybe to buy 1 or 2 in the same building for some investors, but consider buying one, see how that performs for you. There's no rush, as I keep saying, and then look at the next development. Luckily our business model has meant we have a lot of repeat business. So typically someone will buy, they'll enjoy the experience, they'll be happy with the rent, and then we can go to them with a new product and offer them an incentive to buy early. So these things always exist.
Absolutely. So there are many myths about property investments, as we sort of alluded to earlier, from you need a massive deposit to, it's too risky right now. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you come across, and how do you help people overcome them?
So I think it is overwhelming. When you purchase a property, whether that's for lifestyle or for investment, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of options. And again, I think you need to kind of, be pragmatic, but do your research and have a look into all of the options and review them in line with your criteria and what you feel comfortable with. So, again, we talked earlier about the developer's track record, what their business model is, whether they have an in-house management team. So I think these are all the things you should think of. Again, if it's a lifestyle purchase, are you happy with the location? What else will be being built around that area? There's new developments going up all the time. When you look at a development, consider what you think about the amenity and facilities inside. Do they appeal to you? A good example would be some of our residences in the past and some of the competitors we've looked at have had private dining rooms, and had lots of them, 4 or 5. And the reality is they're underused, and people were using them, booking them out and just having a few drinks. They weren't actually using them to cook or, so there's an argument you could just have that space as somewhere you could book out for an evening with your friends, but you don't necessarily, and that could reduce the service charge then in the whole development. So there's so many things to think about, but I keep saying it: due diligence, research, track record, credibility of the company you're looking to purchase with.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I completely agree with all those points. You see people comparing themselves to others, and actually in the example you just gave there. So where I live, there's a room that you can rent out. There isn't any cooking facilities. And I'm always like, well, such another building has it. But it's one of those, isn't it? So you've just got to sort of know what's important to you and go with that. haven't you?
Definitely, and in the rental community, it's quite transient. So typically, people will move from one building to another. Live there for 1 year. Something bigger and better comes along, they go for that one. So, I think for young people out there, Manchester at the moment's got a variety of beautiful apartments. I've walked through Ancoats today. It's fantastic. I love walking down Circle Square. We've got Vita Living there. I think it's beautiful. You've got First Street. You've got the area around New Jackson, with developments such as the Blade, 360, Deansgate Square. So there's so much choice.
And just to touch on the point that you made there about someone sees something shinier, that's exactly what happened when I saw you building One Port Street. I was like, ooh, that looks better than my building.
Well, we're not going to, that's very subjective, so we won't. But One Port Street, we're really proud of it.
It looks fantastic.
Experience-led building. We've really thought about how we can offer something at the real high end of the market to both home occupiers and to residents looking for the best experience.
So Manchester has become such a powerhouse city, both for investing and living. What is it about Manchester that makes it such an attractive place for long-term property success?
Great question. So we all love Manchester. I'd probably break it down into 3 segments. So I'd say education, commercial activity, and culture. So Manchester, home to 5 universities. So there's over, I think it's 120,000 students a year, 51% graduate retention rate. Wow. So we know through our brands, you've got, students travelling to Manchester from all over the world. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of domestic students, but then you've got students from China, Hong Kong, Kuwait, Saudi, the UAE. So this creates a lot of postgraduates, talented, highly skilled, highly educated workers who then, is helping Manchester turn into a global kind of economic hub. Definitely. And we've talked about the blue chip, companies that are in Manchester, Booking.com, Google, Kellogg's, Puma, Nike, Adidas, and all of these are coming here for a reason. Yeah. I would say as well, it offers good affordability to these businesses if you compare the rental prices to if they were in London, for example. Definitely. So I think that is a big trend. Mm-hmm. Businesses are recognising that and seeing the affordability play for Manchester. The economy here is doing so well. And then the culture. I think Manchester has got a vibrant culture. We love the Northern Quarter, the cultural capital. We've had events such as the Chanel, fashion event, the Brit Awards coming up. The famous music. Oasis have had the comeback, which has been
took over the city.
It was fantastic. Manchester's always had a really, really great music scene. And then the sporting activity as well.
No, well, I moved here, I think, 8.5 years ago. People went, why Manchester? And I was like, it's just got a buzz, and I can't really explain it beyond that. But it definitely has. And I think, there's that feel of that culture, but also, like you say, the kind of education opportunities, the job growth, all those things just contribute to a place where it just can only strengthen like the property market really, because it's something that people want to get invested in.
It's interesting. Most people you speak to about Manchester, they say it's a friendly place. There's a community feel, even though it's a city. It's got a village feel, definitely. And I think that's so true. And you can see why people are moving from all over the UK to Manchester, and it still does from a rental and from an investment perspective represent good value for money, which some young people might think is a crazy statement because their rents are going up and up and up. But if you compare them to like for likes in the capital city, in London, or in other major European cities, it's still got the growth. And I think that's exciting for everyone.
Definitely. So again, kind of with that future kind of vision looking ahead, what do you think are the biggest opportunities or shifts that will define the next decade in property?
So I think that the generational shift really that we've seen is that young people now are not kind of choosing to buy a property to live in straight away. There's a tendency to rent. in the city centre, near the cool bars and restaurants, where there's good connectivity, and they're close to the workplace.
Yeah.
So I think if we continue to see that trend, there'll be more and more people who want to live in the city centre, and that for me gives me a lot of confidence that the property market will continue to go in the right direction. I also think that young people now who are in that position and are renting, they're also keeping an eye on whether they, instead of buying a family home, can make an investment. So, if you can save a nice deposit and then take advantage, as we predict that the mortgage market will become more attractive, I think there will be situations where people are renting their home, but then investing in property for the future, for their nest egg or for their retirement plan.
And I guess part of that is, that change of lifestyle as you sort of typically go up. Like, I'm based in the middle of Manchester, but sometimes I am like, there is going to have to be a deadline on this for me. I am going to have to leave all the bars and that lifestyle behind. But if you want to keep, if it's a good investment,
Exactly.
you can leave the good location that worked for that time being, keep the property in the investment, and go and get some nice greenery somewhere. But that's a few years off yet.
Oh, exactly, and that's another benefit of Manchester. You've got so many nice areas on the doorstep. The Peak District, is only an hour away, and you've got other beautiful places in the north, the Lake District. So I think connectivity in Manchester is excellent. The airport's great. You can fly direct to places like Dubai, Hong Kong, Shanghai. And again, this is just helping Manchester's appeal as a global brand.
So tying in with obviously what we just touched on there in terms of like the renting versus buying, that is something that I speak to a lot of clients and young professionals in particular about. People are kind of saying like, oh, should I have bought a house by now? Like, or should I just continue renting? There is that statement that, the UK in particular are obsessed with purchasing property. Europe don't bother about it. So, what's your opinion on that?
Of course, it's a great question. It comes up a lot. In my day, you were always encouraged to buy a property. I think the landscape was different then. So you would typically have bought, a detached 2 or 3 bedroom in a suburb. And that would have been your life goal then to pay the mortgage. I think attitudes are changing now. There's no right or wrong answer. My opinion, my advice, I would say for young people, capitalise on your lifestyle, invest in your lifestyle, enjoy living in the city centre. Take your time to really work out where you want to buy. So if that means renting for 2 or 3 years, do that. Whether you've got a partner or a colleague you could rent with and share. And then in the background, continue to save, put some money aside. So enjoy kind of the benefits of being in the city, not too much though. So you're not spending your money all the time, and start to save. So eventually you'd then be in a position to decide, do I want to buy in a suburb? Do I want to actually buy an apartment in the city centre? Which, as we've talked about, if I do that, I could live in it for a period. So my rental then is servicing the mortgage. If after 5-10 years I then decide I want to move to the Peak District and have a country life, you could then rent the property out or sell the property. And with property prices in Manchester predicted to go, another 25 to 30% over the next 5 years, you can see that there's a good opportunity there to potentially even then sell that property, take the equity and the funds, and then buy your forever home.
Yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it? It's looking at the value of what you're doing rather than necessarily just the cost, because, one of the things that I hear a lot is, oh, well, renting's dead money. But it's the things that it affords you, i.e. the flexibility to move, the freedom to be able to travel. And like you say, with the ability to be able to think, well, actually, I can then just up and leave. And
of course, and I would say for young people renting in the city, it removes the need to actually have a car, which is a big cost. That's dead money.
And we were talking about parking before.
Parking has been a nightmare today in Manchester, and I think the overall cost it's going to be something like £17 for the 4 hours. So if you put that over a week and a month and a year, you start to see actually by living in the city there are savings as well. Typically walk to your place of work, you've got everything on your doorstep, so you don't need the Ubers. So there's pros and cons. But I think, just enjoy your lifestyle, enjoy the city centre, really work out, what your objective is, save when you can, and then when the time's right, invest in a property.
Thanks, Adam. And thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to hear your insights on all your experience.
It's a pleasure. I love talking about Manchester. Thank you.
For anyone who wants to learn more about Select Property, head to selectproperty.com or check out Vita Living Circle Square here in Manchester, one of the city's most exciting developments. And if you enjoyed the conversation, make sure you're following the MYP Next Gen podcast for more conversations with leaders, founders and changemakers across the city. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time on MYP Next Gen. So like, subscribe, follow, wherever all the links are.